Let's finish the FlexiRig's squash and stretch system. The first thing we'll want to do is go ahead and clone our temporary box here just a few times so that we can use it for helper C and D. So I'll go ahead and press Ctrl V, go ahead and clone this as a copy, and we will quick align this to helper C. I'll hold down Shift and create another copy, just dragging this out, and we'll go ahead and quick align to helper D. I'll press F3 to go to wireframe mode, and let's go ahead and link this cube to BNDRV D and C. Okay, great. So we're working with the same equation that we used for object B. Let's go ahead and take a look at that again. We'll head over to our motion panel, expand scale, get to the scale X, right click and choose properties so we can get back to our expression controller. Let's go ahead and copy our code. Now, before we move forward, I'd like to make this very clear. The reason why our global value works when we multiply by 10 is because that global value is actually a value of 1. That's very important. You'll see that if we were to grab the global control object and press the R key to go to our scale tool again, our global value is 1 or 100%. If we notice that our scale was slightly off, if this was, let's say, a value of 2 or 3.5, we might notice that our helpers here kind of shift or pop when we evaluate our expression. That's why we want to get into the habit of resetting our objects and freezing our transforms so we can avoid issues like that. So again, once the expression has been copied, we can go ahead and close out of the editor, and we can go ahead and move to the next object. We're using that same exact equation for the scale X and Z of the other two helpers. So we'll go to BNDRV C, we'll find the scale X, assign our float expression. We can go ahead and paste in the expression. We can now create our variables. That's global, and that's length. All right, so with length selected, we'll choose Assign to Controller. We'll expand our global node. Here's Flexi Distance. Expand that, expand Object, and we'll go ahead and find Distance. Great. We'll now go ahead and find the global scale Y. So I'll expand the inside of the global node, transform scale Y. And now we can go ahead and evaluate this. So what I'll do is go ahead and make sure to transfer this to the Z scale, and then we'll do the same thing for helper D. I'll pause the video. Okay, every expression has been applied. Let's go ahead and test this out. I'll press F3 again to go to shaded mode. We'll go ahead and grab the connect curve and start to pull that around, and there is our squash and stretch. Fantastic. Let's go ahead and grab the global node and test this out. We should be able to scale this and take a look. Everything works just fine. We can increase the scale of this. Then we can go to one of our connect curves and start to pull this around. And notice everything works. Very exciting stuff. All right, now we need to make sure that helpers B and D don't scale as much as C does. So how can we do this? Let's go ahead and take a look at our expression. We'll go to helper B, go to the x-axis, and choose Properties. So all we need to do is take this value and multiply by the power of a value that would diminish the amount of scale we have. So let's go ahead and concatenate this entire equation. And what we'll do is go ahead and add a comma, and we're going to multiply by the power of about 0.5 so we don't have as much scale. We'll need to go ahead and put an end parentheses here and a start parentheses at the very beginning. We always want to keep track of the amount of parentheses we're working with so that when we go ahead and evaluate this, everything's going to work just fine. All right, so again, we need to essentially multiply by the power of this value, 0.5. So at the very start of the code, right outside of the parentheses, we'll go ahead and add pow for power. By the way, if you needed access to the functions you can work with inside of the expression editor, just go to the function list here. So if we were to go ahead and take a close look, we should be able to find power in this list. Here it is. So this gives us an idea of how to work with this. X is we used before, and then Y is the value that we multiply by using the power function. Later we will be using a condition node or a condition statement to make sure that the scale is triggered once we turn on our active switch. So we'll take care of that towards the end of this lesson. But I wanted to show you that we have all of this here. So just go ahead and close this out, and we'll go ahead and evaluate this. Notice no warnings. If there was a warning, Max would sure let us know. We'd have a pop-up that lets us know, hey, something's a little bit off. You might want to look into it. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and copy the expression here. Let's go ahead and take a look at the Z track. We'll right-click and choose Properties. And we'll simply go ahead and paste in the expression, which is evaluate. So let's test this out. When we grab our connect curve and we start to move this around, again, I'll press F3, you can see that the object B does not scale as much. So we're getting this nice tapering effect. Very nice. All right, so we'll need to use that for object D. Again, I'll go to wireframe mode. Let's go ahead and grab that helper. We go to the x-axis, go to properties, and all we need to do is go ahead and paste in our expression and choose evaluate. Let's do the same thing for Z. Paste and evaluate. Great. Notice how fast this was set up. This is really exciting. So now, if we were to test this out, we're getting the scale we need. This is going to look wonderful when we tie this to our character. All right. Now, how about that on and off switch? Let's go ahead and create that so that the animator can decide when and when not to use this. We always want to think about how much control we can give them without making the rig look too intimidating. All right, so with the global node selected, let's go ahead and add it there. We'll go to our modify panel. Now, if we were to just go ahead and create a custom parameter, what's going to happen is they'd have to scroll all the way to the very bottom of this list to go ahead and find it. So that's what the attribute holder is for. We can either create it by going to our custom quad menu if we've added it here, or another way, of course, is to go to our modifier list. We'll press the A key, and there it is. It's a good idea to rename this to stay organized, so I'll go ahead and right-click and choose Rename right at the top, and we'll name this global_volume, and there we have it. All right, so let's go ahead and create our on and off switch. We'll use a Boolean channel. So we can press Alt-1 to quickly get to our parameter editor. We could also access it under the animation menu. There it is. All right, so let's go ahead and create our parameter. Again, we're using a Boolean type, which is going to create either a checkbox or a check button. We'll actually work with both of these. It's going to be really cool. But we're going to go ahead and start with the checkbox. Let's go ahead and name this parameter active. All right, great. So if you wanted to, if you hit enter, you can go ahead and take a look at how the channel will look, and then you can go ahead and choose add. But once it has been added, we're now ready to add this to our expression. So let's go ahead and start with object B. Let's go ahead and select the helper, head over to the motion panel, go to the x-axis, and choose properties. So remember, we are now using our condition statement found here under the function list. Start with if, and then from there, we have the C, T, and F. So basically how this works is if our active switch is equal to 1, then the expression will look at the T part of the statement, which stands for true, meaning that our squash and stretch will keep its volume. Now, if that is not the case, well then the expression will look at the F part of the statement, or false, meaning that whatever value we put here, that's going to be the value of those helpers. So, of course, we're going to want to use a value of 1 to make sure that when we turn that off, they always keep that original scale of 1. All right, so that's how it's going to work. Really straightforward. Let's go ahead and close this out. And that's going to be as follows. That's going to be if, and then we'll go ahead and put the entire expression here in parentheses, our power statement here. And then we're going to go ahead and add yet another concatenation here. The reason why is because we're going to want to kind of separate this part of our code here. This is going to be our choose statement. So we're just kind of organizing things. So right after the first parentheses, we'll go ahead and type in active. And we want that equal to 1. And then we'll put a comma. So this is the C part of our statement. Next follows the true part of the statement. And then right after the second to last parentheses, so just before that last parentheses, we'll add another comma for our false statement, and we'll put the value 1. Now, if we try to evaluate this, it's not going to work just yet because we haven't assigned active yet. So let's go ahead and create a variable named active. We'll go ahead and now assign this to our global node's custom channel. So here's the global node. Feel free to collapse the scale if it's getting in the way. We'll need to find modified object. Here's global volume, the attribute holder. Let's go ahead and expand that, custom attributes, and there's active. We'll now choose OK. When we evaluate, you'll notice that everything works just fine. All right, so we'll need to go ahead and copy this. Let's go ahead and now close this out, go to the Z track, choose properties. Let's go ahead and paste this in. And now we need to go ahead and create our variable active and assign it to our active channel. All right, let's say we test this out. So you'll see that by default, if we were to go to our global node, go to the modify panel, you'll see active is off. So what that means is that we're not going to get any squashing and stretching from object B. And that most certainly is the case. Great. So if we were to go to our global node and turn on active, that means that the skill is going to work just fine. And again, everything is scalable. Very cool. All right, so we have an idea of how to take care of the others. Let's go ahead and work on C to finish up. Since D is exactly the same as B, you know how to take care of D, and I'll go ahead and leave that up to you. But for C, of course, it's going to be slightly different. Let's go ahead and select our helper and go to our motion panel and find the X. All right, so the only thing that's different here is we don't have the power function. So let's go ahead and start typing in our equation. That's going to be if, and then we'll go ahead and concatenate our original expression. We'll do that twice. So right after the first parentheses is going to be active. And if that's equal to 1, if this is true, we'll go ahead and add our comma and a space. And then right after this, the true part of the statement, we'll go ahead and add another comma. And then we'll go ahead and put in the value 1. Let's go ahead and check to make sure everything looks good. Great. All right, so from here we need to go ahead and find the active channel. So we'll go ahead and create our variable, choose create, and go ahead and assign the Boolean channel. All right, we should be fine. Let's go ahead and choose evaluate. I'll go ahead and copy the code. Let's go to the Z channel, paste the code, and go ahead and create our variable so we can finish this up. So after it's been assigned, we'll go ahead and evaluate this and test this out. So right now, active is on. Let's go ahead and start to move our rig around. You can see everything's working just fine. If we were to go ahead and turn off active, you'll see that only helper D is going to scale. Everything else is going to be pulled in our y-axis. This is really cool stuff. All right, so let's say we go ahead and take care of object D, and that'll be the end of this lesson. We are just about finished with our Flexi rig. We're just about ready to start working on our characters rig. In the next lesson, what we'll do is start hiding a few items that the animators should not need to worry about.